Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us on another episode of Best Practices. I'm Steve Alexander, VP of Industry and Strategic Partnerships at Anagram. I'm joined today by Renato Cappuccini. Renato comes to us from VisionHQ. What's your role there?
Senior Vice President of Sales and Marketing.
Awesome. And you've been in the industry for a long time. You and I go way back. Tell me a little bit about your journey in eye care. What got you in it, and why are you still here?
Okay, it started off with, you know, working a summer job in the family construction business is sort of what, was a time of fate when I experienced an eye injury, not having ever been to an eye doctor or have had to wear eyeglasses or anything like that for any of our family members. But I had a traumatic cataract, so I had to have an IOL put in at a very young age. I experienced a lot of things that patients would experience, from wearing a fake contact lens to, progressive lens in one eye back in the days when they weren't that high performance as they are today. And I just loved optics. I became a licensed optician. From there, I worked for a large group that allowed me to get into management at a young age. And just from there on, it was just always about how can I enhance the experience for people to improve their lives, to understand the journey from eye exam to purchase, and explaining all the different features that during a time when we were just going from CR39 to polycarbonate to high index and, um, AR coatings that were just getting started, to all the benefits and features. So just always loved those things. And I got into marketing and sales for some lens manufacturers and then for some startup companies. And it just was always a thrill to be involved in things that what I would call being early adopters in technology and bringing into the patients and having them experience the benefits of what technology can do to improve their lives. So even to this day, I just feel like everything that I'm involved in is allowing me to continue that journey, that path. I've been in it for a long time to continue to improve lives of people through vision care.
That similar to my story, in that that's what I fell in love with first. Like, I started as an optician when I was 16. My mom had low vision in one eye. My brother had low vision in one eye, and the ability to help people through the knowledge of the optics, the physics of lenses, has always been really gratifying for me. And I find that that's true across a lot of the great people that I get to work with in the industry. They're really committed to helping their community see the world better, which is genuinely very heartening, what keeps me in the industry.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. So I think the way that we communicate to patients has always been something I've been very interested in, how we say things to make them understand the features, benefits, because sometimes we can get too technical, having worked for retailers and seeing that firsthand. I've learned a lot from people that come from outside the business and how they describe things that have gotten them to, get better interactions with the patients coming in, and saying sometimes we can overcomplicate it.
Yeah, very much so. I think it's common for folks to get a little jargon heavy when trying to describe what they're talking about and not really aligning on the things that matter most for the patient.
Hmm.
But I think this is a perfect segue for what we'd like to talk about here today. So today's episode will be best practices for creating loyalty in your eye care practice. I know loyalty is a big topic. There's a bunch of different roads we can go down, but I'd love to hear, what are your thoughts on creating customer loyalty in general? Why is it important?
In general, it's just because today people have access to information at their fingertips. So they question just about everything to make sure that it's right for them. They can easily get information to double check, to ensure that the decisions that they're making are the right decisions. Let's face it, when you're making a decision for vision care, it's not a decision for this week. It's not a decision for the short term. It's a 1 to 2 year decision. So when you're making that kind of purchase, I think people want to make sure that they get the best, or they get the most affordable, and they get what's right for them. So transparency, I think, is really important. And being transparent, being knowledgeable, because knowledge today is, I think, sometimes a term that's used loosely when people say I'm knowledgeable, but if you go fact check online, um, sometimes the knowledge that you get online makes people, what we don't want to hear is that they become the expert on what you're talking about. So you really need to know what you're talking about and understand the features and benefits and what is a feature and what is a benefit and what's in it for the patient in terms of the overall outcome. So having all that scripting, having all that information, and making sure you really are good at presenting options and solutions to get them to say, yes, that's exactly what I'm looking for, to get there quick versus having to convince them that this is what's right for them. I think there's an art in doing that. And having knowledge and having information that is easy and concise for people to understand and fully transparent is really important.
Well, you mentioned transparency a couple of times in there. I'd like to double click on that. What do you mean by transparency?
I think transparency and saying, in terms of, there's a lot of places that you can apply it. First of all, transparency in what you're offering, in what you're providing them in terms of, value for their money. So features and benefits, what you're getting for this product. Usually I always say, if you can list 3 to 5 features and benefits within anything that you're presenting, that's being transparent and saying, AI coatings make you see better. That's not full transparency. They make you see better. Why? It does these 3 things for you. That's in that. And then in terms of for pricing, when you include things in terms of full package, I think where I see lack of transparency quite often is when people start talking about the experience with my Vision Care plan, right? And saying, I thought it included everything. We hear that constantly in retail. When I was in retail, people were always like, we always had to, we had conversations about, well, it doesn't include this, but here's what it does. So I think being upfront right from the beginning is saying, here's exactly what you're going to get, and this is what you save by doing that. Versus here's what's included and here's what you save, and there's transparency there. So what the difficult conversations are, and if you know what they are, address them right up front. People don't like surprises. So I think that's the big thing. These are big ticket purchases quite often. Glasses today are no longer that, under $100 and out the door. It's not the average. We're into hundreds of dollars, if not getting close to a 4-figure, purchase.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, and a very important point that there are a couple of things that you've said throughout the conversation so far already that align really well. Transparency in how you present information, how you present your pricing to eliminate those negative surprises that patients are really reticent to experience, and rightly so. But you also talked about how important it is how you convey that information. Because it's not just, here's everything, here's all the information I have, now make a decision. You've got to kind of walk your customer along in a journey so that they understand what they're being offered and they can understand the decisions that they're making and why those are better for them than another option that they have.
It helps to build the first thing that we think is probably the most important loyalty factor, trust, right? If you don't leave questions on the table and you provide all those informations and you're checking boxes as you go along into what's in it for me, for the person on the other end, you're gaining trust. You're providing information. You're gaining trust along the way. And when you've built that first, I think the strongest loyalty factor, which is trust and credibility, then anything you recommend is going to be saying, you really have my best interests in mind. This is why I came here in the first place. Because I knew I was going to be taken care of. To me, when I gain trust with anybody, whether it's, I'm in the eye care business, so I don't have to have that sort of, same interaction for eye care. But anything I have to do, whether it's, my medical professionals that I visit, and, if I feel really comfortable, I don't question what they do. I don't have to go to Google to double check what they're saying. Saying, you know what, they're very knowledgeable. They told me exactly what I needed to hear. That's the treatment I'm taking.
So I behave similarly now. When I was a practicing optician, I would go out of my way to point out the benefits to the patient, but also the potential, not downsides exactly. We're lucky in that a lot of what we discuss day to day are truly in service of the patient. So there's not really a negative component to getting a particular thing, but to properly set expectations. The thing that I have in mind is photochromic lenses. When a patient is considering photochromic lenses, I'd make a point to say, well, let's take it outside and show you how it actually works. Or when I had the little oven in office, I'd show them that so they could see how dark it gets and how quickly that happens. But I'd always be sure to let them know before we even talked about pricing is that you should know that when you're in the car, because the windshield filters ultraviolet light, they're not going to get darker. So they're not going to replace a pair of sunglasses for driving. And that was one of those things that I always thought was a credibility builder for me, where they knew that I wasn't trying to hide anything. I was trying to be transparent, and that they could set their expectations accordingly, where I'm going to give them all the information they need to make a decision. And you're absolutely right. That was a trust builder.
Yeah. To me, when you're saying things like that, I think immediately about when I make a purchase, like through, if I go to Best Buy and I've got to buy a new computer, a new electronic device, I have that comparison chart with three columns. And I'm always comparing things and saying, what does it do that I need? And then what doesn't it offer that they other, premium purchases might offer? And then I can decide whether I need that or not. There's what I need to have and what's nice to have. So if you're saying when you're doing that, I think you're doing just that. You're providing the checklist of the things that it will do for you that you really want, and some of the things that, just so it's not a surprise, what it won't do for you, right? So I think that's when you sort of, you're right, you gain that sort of immediate credibility by checking those boxes.
What do you say to people and practices who say that customers just aren't loyal anymore? Because that's something that I hear all the time, where it's, oh, they just want what's cheap, or they just want to go online, or what have you. It's a
Mhm.
complaint I hear all the time. Now, not from every practice and not from every practitioner, but it does come up.
So I think we keep getting back to like the loyalty doesn't guarantee a purchase. And what we talk about in terms of loyalty, sometimes we hear, when I like to look at industry data. And right now the data suggests that approximately, in the last 5 years, we've seen the decline of capture rate. And we might use that as a determination for loyalty. But to me, I'm not saying that it is. I'm saying if 100 people come and see you, and right now the capture rate between people with insurance and people without insurance is trending around under 50%, according to industry data. But it's slightly higher for patients with insurance. So they're loyal to making a purchase with their insurance program and benefits. However, they're loyal to the provider by coming in and saying, I trust you to do the exam because you're the best at it. That's the first thing. If they came to you, you have the opportunity to be, what I would say, in a lot more control of that number, that capture rate number. And perceived value is what this comes to. And saying, they're not always buying from you. The fact that they're coming to you, they've walked through your door and come to your establishment and come to your business to do business with you. It's up to us to change the way that we engage to get what we want. We want to do business with you. We want your business. I think if we continue doing the things we've done for the last 15 years and 10 years, and even in the last 5 years, we're going to see that number continue to decline. That capture rate, it's even lower. It's in the under 40% for people without insurance that come and see you. They come to you for the exam because they prefer you to do the better job. However, they might not see perceived value with you. And it's our jobs to create perceived value. People have what, 500 to 2,000 frames invested as inventory. That's a lot of money. How could you not have something that they could possibly want? Perceived value is not there. And I think that that's another huge loyalty factor in, we have to create that conversation before the exam, letting them know perceived value is here. I can do anything anybody else can do. You have access to the same materials and pricing that just about anybody else can get in the industry when you're a practitioner, an independent practitioner. You have a lot of options and choices to be able to provide something that fits their budget. So if price is a factor, create value in your pricing for them to want to say yes. So people walking out the door, I always say, we've always said, in training and saying in sales, if somebody hasn't said yes and they say no, thank you, they need to say it 3 times at least for me to realize I haven't done a good enough job to make them say yes. I haven't provided you with enough information or a good enough reason for you to say yes. I want to move forward with you. I do, because I think that that's what's lacking today is we just expect just because they come to see us that they should buy from us, and the expectation is no longer there like it used to be.
Well, I think there absolutely is a disconnect there. You mentioned the perceived value, but I actually think for a lot of patients and prospective customers, it goes in the other direction. It's not that they necessarily don't see the value; they actually perceive that what they're about to go into is more expensive than it should be, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
patients will come in expecting, oh, I can't afford glasses here, and a lot of practices make it seem like they can't afford glasses there. So rather than spending the time to look around and actually finding out whether or not it's affordable, a lot of patients would rather just save the embarrassment of saying, I can't afford your glasses, and say instead, I'll just take my prescription and I'll be back, or something like that. And I think we've done a lot of work as an industry to provide higher quality products to raise the ceiling, so to speak. But if a patient calls in and asks your practice, how much are glasses? And you say something like, well, we've got frames that are $500 and your lenses can be another $700, you're going to turn off a lot more patients than you're going to welcome with that.
I think that that's something where you can, as a business, you need to make a decision in terms of where you position yourself. Positioning is really important. But if you think pricing is the motivating factor for a discussion for someone, look, to come up with a price and say this is how much they cost. I know if I was in business, if I have a variety of price points, and I believe most people do, I'm talking in general, having been in so many practices, I see that they have the value products that are saying, the low cost items to address that percentage of patients that are looking for price. Say, look, we have glasses that start at $99, just like anybody else. And then we have prices that vary from there. And I'd always be saying, I wouldn't just say glasses can be up to $500 or more. I think you're making a statement that you're not sure where you're going to start and you're not sure where you're going to end. Because how many times have we always heard that I had no idea that person was going to walk out of here buying 3 pairs of glasses and spend $1,500 with me today? And it's just understanding the needs of the patient, understanding the needs of the customer. And if you don't understand the needs, you don't know how you're going to get there. And sometimes we try to go right to the end point without understanding the needs and asking questions. There's not enough discovery done. You know, I think it's what are you using glasses for? Are they just backup glasses? Let's start with where we can just do you need something just as a backup every day? Do you want the best performance? And let's talk about some features, benefits, and things that are important to you. And then I can get to a better, what's it going to cost you? So I think I like using electronics as a good example. If I need a laptop, I can buy a laptop for $199 and I can buy a laptop for $1,999. I just don't know what I'm going to need until I go through all the features and then I decide what I'm going to spend.
So I think you're absolutely right that not enough discovery is done to figure out what a patient's needs are. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I'm going to say that the ones that are struggling are probably they're struggling because of time commitments. Also, how much time can they spend with that one patient? The other part of it is have they really trained the people properly at being able to ask the right questions to get the information they need? I was at a doctor meeting 2 weeks ago. We were having dinner prior to a morning meeting that we had to have, and for the morning presentation. And I was sitting down with a table full of optometrists, and it was just a good social, evening gathering. No, trying not to have a lot of industry talk in each other. We did talk. It's hard not to talk, shop talk. Um, and one really successful practice says we retrain our staff every 3 months, and I make sure that I even get my doctors to present to me. To present to me, I want to hear their pitch on how they're presenting these things that are important to us that we specialize in. If we say we specialize in it, we better be really good at it. I just want to hear the conversations that are taking place. I want to see what they're saying. It has to be the same thing I'm saying. It has to be the same thing that the person next to me would say, because they might interact with three different people in their journey, and it has to be consistent with messaging. I don't think we do enough of that, Steve. I don't think people just say, "Oh, you came into me with training. You're educated. You've got your diploma, you've got your degree, and you've worked in these places. That means you know what we need to do. Get to work." Training, role playing, speaking the same language, it's very important, and it's something that we have to do. Almost, you have to, you can't just say you did it once and you're done. It's important to sit down with team meetings and talk about, hey, who's having success with this? We have KPIs and say there's always someone that's so much better than someone else at being able to close the sale. Hate to say it that way, but convince someone to accept a treatment plan, things like that, and say, what's your secret sauce? What are you saying? Let's all do that. That's the way to do it. That's when you should all get together and get on the same page.
It happens in practices that are really busy, right? You hear this from practice owners, from managers, from ODs, from opticians all the time. Oh, we're so busy. And I think part of that is your average practice has more to do than they've ever had before. But we also know that the capture rate is decreasing, like you pointed out, and the profitability is decreasing because reimbursements from these vision plans are not keeping up with the cost of doing business. Rent continues to go up, utilities continue to go up, payroll insurance and your staff costs continue to go up. So it's hard. In order to stay afloat, you have to see more patients. And in order to see more patients, you have to hire more staff to support them. And that's kind of a death spiral for profitability. So every staff member is expected to do more. Every practice is expected to see more patients, to squeeze more people in. And it makes it really tough to have a high quality discovery conversation. And it makes it really tough to devote the time to train your staff, to check in on who's doing well at what, and how do we partner up to improve those results. So I think there are tons of opportunities for us to devote the time to do that. We just have to make the time, and there are complications obviously that come with that. But if you're going to build loyalty, and would love your take on this, Renato, if you want to build loyalty among your patients and your customers, you have to deliver an experience that they can't wait to tell people about.
Word of mouth is essential for businesses. You can't, this is one of those things that with word of mouth, I like to think of those people that actually that provide word of mouth advertising as your advocates. And these people can bring you 3.5 times more new customers than what you can afford to do through advertising. So it's worth investing in those customers that become your advocates. It's so much more expensive to try to advertise to bring in a new customer. So the cost of bringing in a new customer, I think, is about what? 5 times more than investing in your current customers to create advocates. When you think about that, we're starting to see the attrition, the loss of loyalty. And that's why loyalty is so important. If they're in your hand, they're walking through your door. Turn them into your advocates. It pays off. The fact that you say you don't have time, make the time. The fact that we haven't done the right thing to get them to stay, find out what that is. I always say there's always an answer to these problems, and there's always a solution for it as well. And it's like the, I hate to use a sports analogy, but if you're going to go 16-0 in a season and you want to win, you train on something to be really good at it. And when you think you're really good at it, you keep doing it over and over and over until you're not just good at it, you're great at it. Good's not good enough anymore. And we need to be on top of every single thing and always perform at our highest level. The experience, you mentioned experience. User experience online. Online companies, they have a term for it. It's UX. They always look at what's going to improve the user experience. Don't get outgamed. We could do the same thing in our 4 walls every day.
I think the the advocacy that you're talking about, building word of mouth, or understanding your customer satisfaction. At Anagram, we use a tool called NPS, the Net Promoter Score, when we
Hmm.
send out surveys to our customers where they rate us on a scale of 0 to 10. And the way that works is, if you get a 9 or a 10, that customer is a promoter or an advocate for you. They're going to tell people that you've got a good product that they should experience for themselves. If you've got a 0 to 6, they're a detractor. They're going to tell people
Yeah.
to not use this product or not go to this place. And if you're a 7 or 8, you're neutral, which means like you might have had a fine experience, but you're not going to tell anybody about it. Your goal as a business is to create as many 9s and 10s as you can and as few of the rest as possible. But I actually think there's a really important conversation to have around the detractors. Like, we're talking about the behaviors that build loyalty. What are the behaviors that build detractors?
Um, I'm going to say certain things when we tie monetary incentives to creating a sale, we might not get an authentic sale. You might get a sale based on dollar, and that goes against the value proposition. That goes against the trust and the credibility. And we've always heard, so the person that ends up feeling like, oh my gosh, I really spent way too much. I don't know if I needed that. And you feel it. You know when someone's trying to sell you. And sometimes what we do is we incentivize it within our staff. Are you really providing what they need, or you're just trying to get a sale? And that's a tough one to overcome, right? Because you can do both and you can do it the right way. But quite often, we feel that incentivizing people to sell things is the way that you make more money, that you actually get a higher top line. But it can always affect you on the bottom line when that person becomes, you call them what was the terminology you used? A, a,
A detractor.
a detractor. Not a good investment. It's a bad investment. What is it? One really happy person tells one person, one really unhappy person tells 10. Not the right investment. So you're totally
And
right.
with that adage has been true forever, and it's even
Yes.
more impactful now because it's not just that they're going to tell one person that they had a good experience; they're going to tell 10 people because of social media. But the
Hmm.
inverse of that is true. If they're going to tell 10 people they had a bad experience, they're going to tell 1,000 people, and you can see it in Google reviews and Yelp reviews and Facebook posts. The Creating a detractor is way more expensive today than it was 15 years ago. And I think you're absolutely right about the incentives we create in practice are often counter to the long-term health of the practice.
Yeah. We used to have a saying, and when I was launching product at a long time, what I would call high quality company, Rodenstock. People might remember when I was a general manager there, and we had a little placard that we put in the practices, and it was the sweetness of low price is long forgotten after the bitterness of poor quality. And the reason I mention that is because quite often I hear people will say, "Oh, why is this frame so expensive compared to this one here that's so inexpensive? They look the same." Well, that's not a really good quality frame. Why would you ever want to even offer something you say is poor quality? The price is different. You should learn what the features and benefits are to make that other one more expensive. Not to ever use poor quality in the conversation saying, well, we provide you with poor quality stuff, but you're going to get what you pay for. You should never, ever do that. Say, whatever we choose to offer you is good quality. Quality varies. And that's a different way to approach a conversation like that. But I hear people that have never been trained properly that just say, yeah, the hinges aren't that good. And, the arms, they loosen up. And those are not good conversations. And that's because we haven't trained people on how to present features and benefits. And I've seen that time and time again. And a
Yeah,
lot of
the instinct there. Sorry for interrupting. The
it's
instinct there
okay.
seems like it's not where I'm positioning. Like, this lower cost product is worse than the one I'd rather you buy. Instead of saying, to your point, instead of being properly trained to say, well, here's what this lower cost product has, and then here's this more expensive product, and here's why it's more expensive. It has imported acetate, or it's made of titanium, or it's made locally, or whatever, right? But to your point, in order to have that conversation in a positive way on both sides of the equation, you have to have the knowledge, and you have to have the confidence to convey that knowledge. And that
Sure.
requires training and practice.
Features, benefits all day long. That's what it always is, right? So it goes back to what we call the sales training 101. Um, so I think that we've talked about that trust factor. Low prices are not always value, right? Its value is perceived value. Did I get all the features that I need that suit me as an individual for a price that I think is fair? That's value. So fair price for what I'm willing to part with. And I received feature sets that work for my day to day, whether that's includes eye strain relief through blue light management. It's a big topic, things like that. These are the things we need to talk about and say, here's what you're going to get for all that.
I also think a lot of times a conversation around multiple pairs gets lost as part of this, right? I'm of the belief, and I don't know where you sit on this, but I'm of the belief that for most people, a single pair of glasses can't solve all of your visual problems, right? Like, I sit in front of a computer all day. I've got computer glasses. When I go outside or go for a drive, I have my prescription sunglasses. People go golfing or they play music or whatever, and each of those things has a different need and a different use case and a different feature set, like you said. But I also think because we are often rushing through the sales process and not asking the right questions ahead of time, we don't even discover that the patient might need that kind of specialty pair.
Steve, when I went from retail to helping launch a prescription program with a high-end sunglass company, I started to see things differently from the customers we were interacting with. And we saw people that were starting with the second sale first, if that makes sense. Saying, you guys sell so many sunglasses. What's your secret? Everybody wants sunglasses. They want really cool sunglasses. It's become a thing for so many people. That's why it's when you walk into department stores and drugstores, wherever you go, there's a sunglass rack almost everywhere. People want them. The consumer thinks sunglasses should be standalone just as it is, a sunglass, right? And then we try to build them from scratch, and they'll say, we start there and say, let's talk about what kind of sunglass suits your lifestyle. You must spend a lot of time outside. And if you do, how does that look? What does that feel like? What would you like those to do for you? When they get that sale, then they go, and then we'll talk about the primary sale. So in thinking that way, some people have used that to leverage second pair sales and starting with the second sale first. Let's talk about the thing. What's the one problem you'd love to solve? You said you work on a computer all day long.
Me
I need to
personally,
just talk about
or
solving your
as an example.
computer problem.
Oh yeah, yep.
You mentioned that as an example. But if someone says, I'm a programmer, I'm in front of a computer, I need to talk to you about the best lens that's going to change your life. These computer lenses will change the way that you think about glasses. Positioning a statement like that makes people say, tell me more. If you've engaged with me that way and saying, great, this is your good computer glass. Now, we might not have to get you into a really heavy duty, expensive frame for that, but the lenses are going to be really important. And if this is going to be your work glasses, let's talk about your other options for what is it that you need to do in addition to, right?
Right.
There's your sunglass. So sometimes we've got into, let's make one pair of glasses do everything. And it gets into the one sale. We've killed the opportunity for sale number 2 or 3, and it doesn't have to be in one day. Your exam is good for a year or 2 years, whatever it says on the prescription. You realize that you can use this every month if you want to buy glasses. You can buy as many pairs as you want to suit your budget. This prescription is a prescription to buy glasses as often as you want and as many as you want. It's not once and done. It's amazing how many people think this prescription is for the pair and that's it.
Right. And more than that, I think what you described and what we've been talking about so far is you have the opportunity when you set up the process correctly. And this isn't just on the optical side, this is at the front desk, this is the technician, the optometrist, and the optician on the way out to be your patient's hero if you do understand their actual needs and you're able to address them. When I was in practice and found out that somebody could benefit from a pair of computer glasses, a pair of dedicated computer glasses, even if they were initially not on board with the concept because they like the idea of having one pair that does everything, if eventually they understood what the benefit was to them and they got there, they never went back to having one pair of glasses that did everything. As soon as they have that specialty pair, not only are they better off every day, but they put the value onto my practice because I was the one that showed them that this was possible. I become the hero. Our practice becomes the hero. And then we have a loyal patient, and not just a loyal patient, but a loyal patient that can't wait to tell people about us.
So I spent some time with a large family retailer. It was a large business. Um, we had stores in several states, but it was an independent family business. Um, and I was also responsible for training all the staff and worked closely with the optometrists. And we talked about working together as a team and presenting things. And when it came to we made our money on glasses. Like we'd say, you know what, 50 to 70% of the business revenue can come from the dispensary with healthy capture rates. And that's the goal everybody wants, is just to make sure you've got a really good, thriving business. And we said, the sale doesn't stop when you sold the glasses. The biggest opportunity is when you dispense them. You went through a lot to get them with the information to say yes on the purchase. It takes what, 1 to 2 weeks before somebody comes back? You could have them ready in 3 days, but we're no longer in a 1-hour service type business, right? These are custom made. They expect that. They'll come back when it's convenient. You need to remind them of all the features, benefits at the dispense. We said the dispense is the most important part. Before you walk out the door, I just need to take 3 minutes to review all the things that you're getting with this really great pair of glasses. You've got the most scratch-resistant coating. You've got the most high-tech oleophobic. That means it resists oils. Features, benefits all the way along, because when you're doing this, you're planting seeds for, I put them on and they go, wow, these are as good as you said they are. It's no longer perceive what they're going to do. Now they do exactly what you said they were going to do. Remember these spring hinges? I'm going to go through everything because when they go home, they're going to say to their friends, check out these springs, check out the slipperiness. Did you feel how slippery these are? When I'm cooking, I just wipe the grease right off my glasses. These are things you need to say and do with your patients to give them things to talk about. And where did you get those? Go see Steve Alexander. He's amazing. He's the one that does this. I just go there because I love them and I trust them. This is word of mouth. And if you don't give people words, you won't get word of mouth. So it's our
Absolutely.
job. It's our job to do that. That's the experience. So, and by the way, note taking. We have a CRM system that we rely on. Our CRM system helps us do our job, especially with AI note takers. Whatever we talked about is there with information for the next conversation. When they come back, you better review the notes. Steve told me he loves to water ski. And Steve, I know these glasses, you might want to wear them for water skiing, but you don't have to do this today. But when it's water ski season, come back and see me. I'm going to tell you, I'll make you a pair of glasses just for water skiing. They're going to blow you away. And don't think about doing anything else. I already know what your lifestyle is. You tell me anything that you need, I got you. So come back and see me as often as you like. You and your family, like we can make whatever you need. You're planting seeds at the moment that they leave. It's never goodbye. You don't want goodbye until the next exam.
Right. It's not just you're working with a frame stylist or you're working with an optician. My goal was always to become their optician, so that I knew, to your point, I had notes on what we talked about and what we potentially would get next time, so that I could take care of them. And yeah, there's a sales motivation around it, but genuinely, like when they picked up their music glasses, and I knew that when they went to play their instrument that weekend, you could see them light up. And like, I did that. What a cool win. What a big win.
Yeah.
I'm also really glad you brought up the dispense. I think it's a tremendously underserved component of loyalty building. When I would dispense eyewear, I would wrap it up with, hey, you see how your glasses feel now? You see how they're even, how they're nice and snug. You see how clean the lenses are. You see how your nose pads fit the way that they should. If you ever notice that that changes, please come in and see me. I want to make sure they feel like this all the time. And if they don't, I'm here to help you fix that. And just that ask, just that permission to come in for adjustments, just the genuine desire to help them out as they go on with their glasses, that's another loyalty builder. Now, I appreciate your time here, Renato, and all the insights. I know you're with Vision HQ. What does Vision HQ do to build loyalty?
So we try to tap into what we say are the loyalty drivers, right? We know people go back to their practitioners, their independent practitioners, for the eye exam. That's the most important thing. But right now, in the way to sort of compete with, what have you got? 2/3 of the U.S. population has some sort of vision insurance. That means 1/3 of them, with that low capture rate, do not have vision insurance. So our software lets you create your own in-house vision membership plans, where you can say, our plan includes an eye exam, it includes percentage off, or it could include glasses. You can build it however you want. You bundle things to create loyalty. It's like a reward program, basically, and saying, for being loyal to us, and say, you're going to only get your exam through us. Then if you do that, if you choose that, be part of our club. And club comes with the rewards, and it's a plan that people can pay monthly or pay upfront annually. So we have payment systems. We do all the collection for them. We do the billing, we do the collection. We have a 90% re-enrollment rate for people that enroll to do any sort of treatment plan. Practitioners can create as many treatment plans as they want or care plans for their patients. There's no limit. And when it comes to getting loyalty, these people now are coming back. They're spending more money because what we've done is remove the lack of transparency. We've provided transparency. Your plan that you said yes to, it includes these 5 or 6 things. It's all included, and you can use them as often as you want in that 12-month period. With a re-enrollment, with a 90% re-enrollment rate, now we're increasing capture rate, we're increasing exam frequency, and then the practitioners are the ones who are saying, I'm getting a better ROI. They're spending more money with me because we built loyalty with them through that, because they've chosen to come back to us anyways, which is loyalty. So you're really strengthening the loyalty that they built together by offering things that they expect. They want things that they feel, for me coming back to you, I'm getting benefits or I'm getting more value for what I spend. So Vision HQ is a membership plan software that lets you create your own vision care membership plans. If you want to say it's vision care plans, but it's membership plan software. And it really
And
does
I
a
think
lot.
the key there, in light of the conversation that we've had up to this point, is that it allows you to create a plan specific to your patient's needs or to your specialty as a practice. But it
Mm-hmm.
also allows you to provide that pricing transparency where a lot of practices lose patients because their pricing is unclear. A patient doesn't know what they're going to spend. A patient doesn't know what they're going to get. But with a good loyalty plan and program, not only will your patients stick around longer and come visit you more often, but they'll tell people about it. And especially if they know people who don't have a vision plan that they can use, you're going to see more private pay patients, which in general, a private pay patient is worth more revenue to your top and bottom lines, of course, but they are also way more likely to follow your treatment plans than somebody who has the friction of the things that you recommend and the things that their vision payer may or may not provide. So
Yeah.
you're building not just a more loyal patient base, but a system by which you can do your specialty more often.
Yeah. And I think it goes right back to where you started with this conversation. People think that the independent practitioner just might be too expensive and they might be looking for a better price elsewhere when they actually realize that they're not, with things like this, with tools like this. And the last thing I'll leave you with in that is a really neat feature that we've seen starting to grow with adoption and with our customers is we have something called Community Connect, which lets you create additional incentives for those small businesses that can't afford to give their employees vision care, or even medical benefits. We don't provide medical benefits, but we provide the vision care portion, saying our plans are good for your employees, and restaurants with a lot of part-time employees where they don't have benefits and they might have to seek vision care elsewhere. So this is a good way to connect with your local community and build rapport and relationships within those small employers just like you that have to provide incentives for their employees.
Fantastic. Renato, thank you so much for your time and for your insights. For those of you listening, this has been Best Practices. I've been Steve Alexander. Come visit us at goanagram.com. Subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. We release an episode every other week. Also, subscribe to our blog, Spyglass, where we release an article every other week as well. Renato, how do people get in touch with you?
Website vision-hq.com is the easiest way. Also, follow us on Facebook. You'll be able to get some information there. And, as far as also with our email address, if that's something we could sort of leave behind or you can post. So it's for me, it's just it's a long one. R for Renato, CAPPUCCITTI at vision-hq.com. But go to the website, just sign up for more information. We'll send it to you, and we'd love to have a conversation and give people a demo. No obligation, no contracts when you work with us. Just tools that work.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for listening. Renato, thanks again. We'll see you next time.
My pleasure.